things. I think I'm going to make these kind of videos, some of these, but not on the live, just on videos, and do it almost like a research paper with my cited sources and everything, so that you can go look at the links and you can go look at the books and you can see what I'm talking about and where I get my information from, just to increase the credibility of what I'm saying. But Palestinians were trying to create a state. And Israel has at every turn blocked that from happening. The Palestinians were working to build a state with the Palestinian Liberation Organization, Palestinian Liberation Organization. And they were making a little bit of progress, and Israel did not like that. They also don't like the idea of them calling themselves a liberation organization. So Israel gave a bunch of money to Hamas and built Hamas up as a way to divide the Palestinians between the PLO and Hamas. And then the terrorist acts of Hamas, they used as an excuse to go after everyone in Palestine, regardless of what camp they fell into. And it wasn't during the lifetimes when the majority of the people voted for the PLO, for the Hamas to come to office, which I believe happened, I don't know when, but I remember I graduated in 2006, and it was sometime around there, right? Where, damn, I forgot what I was just saying before that. Well, what was I saying happened around the time I graduated? It made my mind jump to another memory, and I forgot what I was talking about. The PLO, I was talking about the PLO. So Israel sends a bunch of money to Hamas to divide the Palestinians up between the PLO and Hamas. And then it uses the attacks of Hamas as now I remember what I was saying, as a pretext. What I was saying, I forgot it again, dang. The PLO. What I was talking about before. Israel at every turn stops the Palestinians or gets in the way of them creating a unified state. Then they have the audacity to say that if they would have wanted a state, they would have made one by now. And the PLO was working on putting together a state, and Israel put a lot of money behind Hamas to divide the Palestinians up between Hamas. And then when, I think around the time I graduated in high school, somewhere around there, they elected Hamas people as their leaders. Well, time has went on. More children have been born. And if you look at the percentage of people that actually elected Hamas, it's a minority of the people. Most of these children and most of these young people that are being killed over there had nothing to do with that. But it is really crazy how Israel will, it's really insane. And, a lot of people probably, they hate America because of its constant funding of Israel, but they don't really realize the information the American people are getting. The American people are not getting the truth. The American people are the most advertised to and propagandized people on earth. And it starts from a young age. The indoctrination starts from a young age in school and in church. The Ashkenazi Jews have also infiltrated the Protestant church with secret societies like the Masons. And they have, and the Cyrus Scofield Bible commentaries are taught in every Bible college, in every denomination, all across America, where it gets the Bible to be reinterpreted in such a way to make the people believe that they must blindly support Israel no matter what. It also gets them to misidentify who the Israel of God is. It's not these converts of the Pharisees. It's not these Ashkenazis. No one is under any obligation to blindly support these people no matter what. And if you knew what they had done to our own people, my own people, and before the wars, before the great wars, but you see, they're doing horrible things to the Arabs and to the Turks and to the Persians, and they're always portrayed as like this victim. We're always told that there's this tiny little state that's just like us over there that's a victim, and this is not true. And Israel does not have the same values that we do. They do not have freedom of the press. They forced sterilized Ethiopian Jews for being too dark. This country in Israel, many of them, they want Christians dead. Anytime any Islamic terrorist organization is killing Christians, you can bet Israel will give money to them. And it is terrible. It is terrible. Because could you imagine if an army showed up in your land and they took your cows away from you and they made you not allowed to have cows? They took your livestock from you. And then they told you, instead of driving straight to work, you got to drive all the way out the way, all the way around. And you got to drive up all your gas, and you got to go in through all these different checkpoints and all, to and fro from work. And then when your economy began to suffer from it, they would tell you, you're inferior to us. You have a bad economy. You're not building anything. And then they blow up your house for something someone else did that's not even you. And then you go to build and they won't let you build. They say you need a build permit. And then you go to get the build permit and it's denied to you. Israel is constantly at war with these people. It is constantly at war with the economy of these people. It's constantly stealing from these people. It's constantly imprisoning these people. And all the while, they're crying that they're a victim. You know, they preemptively attack. They say everybody was going to attack them, but really they attack them first. They attack all the countries around them. And then those countries go to defend themselves, and they lose a lot of lives because Israel has a lot of advanced weapons given to them by Europe and America. And they're just defending themselves. And then Israel says, see, I'm a victim. I got attacked again. When they attacked first, every single time. I just stop myself from cussing. People need livestock for meat, for leather, for milk. There's places of ground that isn't really good for almost anything but grass. But you can get food from that grass through having cattle. Yeah, Israel, but the Ashkenazis decided to go put themselves in the middle of all those people, didn't they? They decided that. Because they wanted to control the trade routes of the world. They were in Iraq before they were ever there. And they were in Egypt after that before they ever went back there. And then they were back in Babylon and back in Assyria before they went there. And then they was all over the world and they went back there. But they've always wanted to be in that spot because it's on the trade routes. Let's say that you could not use a religious argument, right? Let's say that because different people have different religions. Let's say you cannot use a religious argument. You cannot make the claim that God give them that land. Because anybody could say, God promised my ancestors that land, okay? Why do they have a right to, after leaving that land, they're up there, and a lot of you probably don't know about this, but they genocided 60 million Slavic people. That's why Germany got mad with them. They were putting anyone in a concentration camp that wasn't an atheist. If you would not renounce Jesus Christ, they tortured you and put you in a work camp and worked you to death before World War II. And 50 years after the conclusion of it, Jews continued to put Russian and Slavic and German people in concentration camps called gulags, where if they would not renounce belief in God, they would be tortured to death. They starved and killed so many people. And then did Palestinians attack them? No. Did anyone in the Middle East attack them? No. Did anyone there do anything for them? You know, the Germans fought against them to try to protect the lives of the Germans in Prussia and Poland and elsewhere. Right? So why do they then? Because people feel sorry for them, because they reap some of the consequences of their own actions. They reap some of what they sowed. People felt sorry for them, and now this gives them the right to go genocide a different people in Palestine that have been living there for hundreds of years, even thousands of years. Because people feel sorry for them, now they can go kill other people. Now they can go rob from other people. Now they can blow up other people's homes. And we say, yes, they can, because God give them that land. Are you sure? Are you sure that they are even the people they say they are? Why do they have to go to the government to get a DNA test? Why are they more genetically related to the people of the Khazarian region than any other Semitic peoples on earth? Are you sure they are who they say they are? Can they prove it? Why did they stop tracing their lineage from their fathers and start tracing their lineage from their mothers? Why do they keep the star Rephium, a symbol attributed to Moloch and Baal and Saturn? I can talk about some other topic, but I mean, this is where I started off on this live. I can change topics, but the whole reason I made this video was for two reasons. One, to say I'm about to start making fuller videos where I cite my sources, so you can go and look up the sources yourself. And the second thing I was going to say is I was going to point out the fact that Israel is the one that give all this money to Hamas in the beginning to grow the organization as a counter to the PLO. And I think that's very significant information that it's worth it for a lot of Americans to know, because a lot of Americans do not know this. It's just like America is who give all the money to the Taliban and give all the money to Al-Qaeda when they wanted to fight against the Soviet Union. They give money to ISIS when they wanted to overthrow Syria, but then when ISIS began to take parts of Iraq, they didn't like it, and then they called him a bad guy. I mean, America's money is siphoned mostly for foreign interest and not domestic interest. There's things at home domestically that need taken care of, but the people who are supposed to be representing the American people have no interest in really putting their attention in America. They don't really pay attention to the fraudulent banking system. They don't pay attention to neo-Marxism creeping into the schools, or the infrastructure failing, or trying to put an end to borrowing from future generations, or to improve the living standards, or to keep the currency strong. The politicians in America completely ignore what they need to focus on in America, and they have their eyes everywhere else in the world, mostly for the benefit of Israel, but also for just imperialistic ambitions. No one people can rule the whole world. It is folly to try. It is foolishness to try. And normally, in almost every single circumstance, a nation can profit more by developing what they have rather than trying to steal something from someone else. And so our leaders, they're always looking for some sort of imperialistic, ambitious, plundering mission somewhere abroad, or they're always trying to fight all of Israel's enemies, because that's who gives them the campaign money to get reelected, and that is who is the gatekeepers of television. So because they need to be on the Jew side to get on television, and because they need to be on the Jew side to get enough money to get reelected, they do Israel's bidding. And because they are greedy men and they want to make a name for themselves. They also have their own imperialistic ambitions to rob and plunder other countries in the world. But what they would be better off doing is serving the American people by focusing on problems that are in America and using American tax revenue to improve the lives of Americans and not destroy the lives of other people to put pockets in their money and just shoot the bird to the whole world and the Americans. And I know that sometimes, emotions are contagious. And I know that some people, they want to relax, they want peace, they don't really want to feel my stress or my anger or my frustration right now. And you would like me to talk about another topic. But there's a time to talk about these things. These things cannot be ignored forever, because this unjust siege of Russia, where we have surrounded Russia with all these different vehicles that are able to launch nuclear missiles into Russia. This lying about it in the media, but really just this siege of Russia and this antagonization of Russia and this antagonization of Iran. None of these things help the American people. This making enemies everywhere to just have this one little friend in Israel whose people believe that the best of Christians deserve death. The Talmud says that. These Jews that you want to send that the Christians want to send all their money to believe that Christians should be killed. And if they get the political power, they'll do the same thing they've done during the Bolshevik Revolution. When they get the power to kill Christians, they do. And somehow they've talked the Christians into giving them money and sending them money to kill the Arabs and to kill, the Palestinians are majority Muslim, but there's Christians there too. There's Christians in Palestine being bombed. There were Christians in Lebanon getting bombed by Israel. There were Christians in Syria getting bombed by Israel. There were Christians in Iraq being bombed by America. The biggest Christian cities in Japan were the two that got the nukes dropped on them. Look at the back of the $1 bill. Do you really think these leaders are really Christians? They're satanic occultists. They literally worship the devil. I know that sounds far-fetched and crazy, but it is really true. Albert Pike is very clear about it, that they worship Lucifer. It's time to just wake up. Like, George Bush knew to get elected he had to say he was Christian, but in Skull and Bones, what did they call him? Gog of Magog or something? They called him God. Adam Weishaupt, I think, the founder of the Bavarian Illuminati, Karl Marx, Anton LaVey, the founder of the Satanic Church. All these things have something in common. All of them have something in common. They're just like Benjamin Netanyahu. They're Ashkenazis. Who funded radicalizing black people to want to hate white people? Jews. Who funded all this COVID vaccine to put RNA in the human body to code for the dangerous part of the coronavirus, to put the spike protein in the blood to make the blood clot and to create heart swelling and kill people, shorten lifespan and fertility? Who put the aluminum? Who put the mercury in the vaccines to make a little bit more money and extend their shelf life? Who poisons your food? When you look at all these horrible things that are in the food, wake up and see the pattern. Like, do you really? Who inflates the currency? Who borrows money from future generations? Who funds transgenderism? Who funds homosexuality? Who's putting all this money behind this propaganda to get white people to hate themselves and think they're not worth preserving? Who's trying to open up your borders while they're always defending theirs? It's always them. It always is. What kind of people escape slavery and then go straight to enslaving and genociding other people, all the while telling them God said to do it? Do you really believe that? Do you really believe that God told them to kill every man, every woman, every child, even the animals? You think God told them? You think the same God that told them, thou shalt not covet, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, is the same God that told them to go genocide other people and take their land and it was going to be their land forever? I'm not basing this on facts. What are you doing? Doing a quick search on Google, a company founded by two Jews that set the algorithm to push progressive liberalism? There are Russian authors that wrote about the Bolshevik Revolution. Google, was the Bolshevik Revolution a Jewish revolution? And Google will tell you no. But then Google this, say, what's the list of the Bolshevik revolutionary leaders? And then give you a list. Then do the work. Go search the name of each and every one and figure out what their ethnicity is, what their nationality is, what their religion is. Go one by one down the list. And look, they're what, 87% Jews, and the ones that are not are still Khazarians out of Georgia, in that area, between Ukraine and Georgia, southern Russia. Don't tell me I'm not basing this on facts. I'll tell you what, like I said in the beginning of this video, I'm going to start making videos that are more like a research paper where I put all I cite my sources in the video. I'm going to start doing that. I'm going to be putting more work into it. I'm going to tell you that a lot of the things that you were told, look up who owns your textbooks. When you go to high school and when you go to college, go look in your book at who is the publisher for those books. And then go see who owns the publishing company. When you watch the news and believe every word, look at who gives money to those news companies. Look at who owns those news companies. When you're spending your dollar, look at who prints those dollars. When you hear statements from the politician, look at who gives them money. Look at who gives them campaign money. When you hear your history books, when you watch, the next time you watch a history on television, watch at who gets subtitles and who doesn't. You're saying I'm not basing this on facts. Do you think, and you might not know this about my background, but I used to be a Christian Zionist. I used to be absolutely, fully supportive of Israel. Absolutely supportive of Israel, fully. And then I changed my position to the exact opposite. Do you think I did that for no reason? Do you think I did that with no facts? Do you think I just woke up one day and said, oh, I'm wrong about everything I believe the opposite now? And I was very stubborn about it. I didn't want to see the truth. I didn't want to believe the truth. It's easier to fool people than to convince people they have been fooled because their own pride gets in the way. It's also hard to tell someone a truth that they have not found out for themselves because their pride gets in the way. They can't imagine that somebody else would know it when they don't know it, or see it before they see it. Or they don't want to believe that they were able to be deceived so easily, and the pride gets in the way. Overgeneralizing. Generalizing in any kind of way whatsoever has pretty much been made illegal. Why do you think that is? Why do you think we're not allowed to generalize? Why are we not allowed to stereotype? Why are we not allowed to judge? Why are all these things taboo? We want to just disprove any absolute truth. We just want to say, oh, there's an exception here, or there's this here, or whatever. I would say that you cannot even really talk about anything without some level of generalization. And I would say that most people are undergeneralizing. I'm using poetic language. Technically, it is not illegal, but what I'm saying is there's a lot of social shaming. There's a lot of shaming if anyone critically thinks or judges or generalizes or notices patterns or anything like that. People are being trained to never even make a absolute statement, to always give an exception, to always basically argue against their own point every time they make it. And they are taught to basically believe that you cannot make any general statement whatsoever. that there's, and I'm saying that critical thinking and generalization are not the same things. If you were never able to generalize whatsoever, to critically think, to imagine if I was to say, I'd say I have a blue shorts on. But then you have to say, oh, nope, you don't really have blue shorts on, because if you flip it over at the end, there's a white thread on the inside and there's some green grass seeds stuck to it. And then I was to say, my name is Paul. And you was to say, wait a minute, you've got a middle name and a last name. And if you were to say, sometimes you just have to talk in general. You just have to. Now, sometimes things are mostly true. And instead of to critically think, you have to look at the whole context of everything that's being said. And you can understand that some things are meant to be talking about the majority and not talking about every single exception, but some people, their brain is already stopped from seeing the whole picture because they're trained to be triggered by something. Oh, you made a general statement. That's not allowed. Oh, you said something that was a stereotype. That's not allowed. Not thinking about where do these stereotypes come from? Because certain things can be generally true, but not always true. There may be an exception, but it's been true enough for it to be a pattern that people see. Or you go to make a judgment about someone and they say, oh, you judge and you're supposed to tolerate everything. You're supposed to accept everything. You're not supposed to think anything is ever anything for any reason. There's supposed to always be some kind of exception or something like that. You definitely can. You definitely can generalize while also critically thinking. And I know that you could also not critically think by just, not. I'm gonna back up and I'm gonna read the comments and see if I'm missing anything. Yeah. He who lives by the sword does die by the sword. And basically, Israel lives by the sword. But then, when they begin to reap what they sow, the Bible also says, God is not mocked. Whatsoever a man sows, he shall also reap. Israel thinks this doesn't apply to them. They think that they hundreds of millions of people and nothing ever happened to them. Nobody ever get mad at them and do anything else about it. They were trying to genocide all the Christians, not only in Poland like they were doing, but also in Germany, like they had done in Russia, and they reaped a little bit of what they sowed. And then now in Palestine, they have been robbing people of their homes, kicking people out of their homes, stealing their cattle, taking their money, and constantly expanding, taking more and displacing more people. And then every now and then they get attacked back and they say, I'm a victim. No, you're not a victim. Israel's just reaping what they've sowed. Same thing with America, to be honest. America drops bombs and kills all kind of people. Really? to install a central bank or to nationalize their resources and get a good deal and get a good cut of them. And then every now and then people get mad about it and attack us back. And we say, oh, we're a victim. We didn't do anything to deserve this. How dare they? But brother, think of it this way. There are a ton of humans that are criminals, right? But you aren't one, right? So it would be overgeneralizing to claim that all humans are criminals. When did I say all? I said, I recognize the pattern. I didn't say it is all of them, but I was saying that it seems to be every time that it is them. See what I'm saying? I'm not like all Jews didn't fund the Church of Satan, but Anton LaVey did, and he was a Jew. Every Jew is not a member of the Bavarian Illuminati, but Adam Weishaupt, he founded it, and he was a Jew. All Jews are not communist, but Karl Marx that started communism was a Jew. All Masons are not Jewish, and all Jews are not Masons, but every member of Solomon's Lodge, the first one, were Jews. All Jews do not push transgenderism, but look at who funded it. All the ones that did were Jews. All the media, all Jews don't work in the media, but look at the media. The overwhelming majority of the media is Jews. Now, are there a few that are not? Am I really overgeneralizing? There's a difference in overgeneralizing and just putting your head in the sand and refusing to see the obvious. Look at history. Look at the pattern that's followed. Look at the pattern that follows these people wherever they go, everywhere they go. And you tell me I'm overgeneralizing? No, I think you're undergeneralizing. I think you find one exception, you find some exceptions, and then you want to pretend like the whole thing isn't happening. Because they're connected. You say, why am I stressing their Jewishness and not their actions? That is because they are connected. They're very connected. The Judaism, the outgrowth of Judaism, is why they make these actions. The Talmud saying that the non-Jew doesn't have a soul that plays a part in their actions. The Talmud saying that it is not a crime for a Jew to steal from a non-Jew because the non-Jew is property of the Jew, leads to these actions. The Talmud saying that in the future, Jews will enslave all the nations of the world and each Jew will have their slaves. That leads to their actions. The Talmud saying that if a Jew is tempted to do evil, then he should just go do it in a city where he's not known. That influences their actions. Because they believe that they are God's children, but no one else is. Because they believe that they are humans, but other people, the Talmud says, are animals made in the shape of a human to serve the dignity of the Jew. That leads to their actions. Because the Talmud tells them that if a Jew tells a non-Jew what's in the Talmud, they should be put to death. This leads to their actions. Because the Talmud says it's okay for them to lie to the non-Jew to advance their religion. That leads to these actions. Because the Talmud tells them that they're supposed to rule over the whole earth, it leads to these actions. And then when you really corner a Jew and you really talk to them about it, right? And you really say, do the Jews control the world? And they want to deny it. They want to deny their power and everything. You say, well, do you think the world would be better if they did? They say, yes. They believe that it's the Jews' divine purpose to give the law to the rest of people, and it's the rest of the people's job to work for the Jew. So the reason I'm stressing their Jewishness is really, look, it's not really their Jewishness per se. It's their Phariseeism. It's the fact that they followed the religion of the Pharisees, not the religion of Moses. That's the issue. It's because they have traded the commands of God for the commands of men that is the issue. It's because of all these different rabbis that were really just the continuation of the Pharisees, the very people that made the temple into a marketplace and killed Jesus, that causes these problems. It's the very fact that they hate Jesus that causes these problems. That's why, they move into all the Christian countries and they move into all the Muslim countries, and then they feel that they should be able to rule over them. that is their divine destiny to be the moral arbitrators. Meanwhile, they're cutting the dicks off of babies and sucking the blood out of it and not being charged with pedophilia and not having their kids taken by defects. It leads to the problem. I would say that Judaism is the most racist and vile religion to ever be on the face of the earth. And all the things that you don't like about Islam, a lot of that comes from Muhammad getting his idea of the religion of the Israelis from Pharisaical Talmudism and not the law of Moses. So that's why I stress it. The reason I stress it is it's the problem. The Judaism is the problem. That's why I stress it. Not all. It doesn't matter if not all. There will always be ones that do believe it because that's what their Talmud teaches. So you can say, well, they don't all believe it. Of course they don't all believe it. There's a bunch of Jews right now in New York protesting against what Israel is doing in Palestine that agree with me that what they're doing over there is twisted, evil, and sick. I know all Jews don't believe it, but as long as there are Jews that follow the Talmud, there will be Jews that do believe it and carry it out and act it out. You know, like not all Muslims are at war with the infidel, but because the Quran prescribes that, there will always be Muslims that are. What is your point? I'm tired of this. Like, you can't pretend what's happening is not happening because you say every single one of them is not involved in it. It doesn't take everybody to be involved in it. Look at the American Revolution. What was it? 3% that actually were actively involved in carrying it out. And that's all it took. And it's more than 3% of the Jews that are involved in it. But I would say even if 97% of them are not involved in it, it doesn't take all 97% of them to carry it out. It doesn't matter. You know, most Jews don't even study the Talmud. But the rabbis do. And they believe it. And they have a lot of influence over their communities. And it doesn't take every single Jew to be a part of it. They're still going to kick their money up to the ones that do carry it out. Jeez. And this is part of the brainwashing I'm talking about. This is part of that indoctrination that Americans get. The not all. There's an exception. You can't see what's in front of your face because not all. It doesn't have to be all. That's part of the conditioning that's put in you where you can't even see the pattern. If you do see the pattern, you're like, oh, it's racist to see the pattern. You're not allowed to critically think. Your mind is put in a box. You're always in your mind. It's in a box, right? Black people are oppressed. White people are racist. The Jews can do no wrong. Women and Jews can never do anything wrong. Homosexuality is normal. All these bullshit things. You're trained to not think. You know, focused on individuals. I named some individuals, didn't I? Anton LaVey, Adam Weishaupt, Rothschild, Benjamin Netanyahu. Every single rabbi that exists, like the rabbi that goes to Iceland, goes to the capital of Iceland and immediately says that Iceland's too full of people from Iceland. They got to let everybody else in their country. But I could make a long list of individuals. Like I was focusing on individuals. Like 87% of the people on the list that was behind the Bolshevik Revolution and the ones that are not are still Khazarian. It's not like what? Do you think it's not significant that all these different individuals are Jews? You think that's just by chance? Do you think we were warned about the synagogue of Satan for no reason? Do you think Jesus called those people the children of Satan for no reason? Do you think he said that they would convert people and make them twice the son of Satan for no reason? Do you think that he said, my Father's house is meant to be a place of prayer, but you have turned it into a den of thieves and robbers for no reason? Do you think that a man that went around just healing people and telling the truth, that they just crucified him? You know, it's just... Look at the history of these people. They always go into lands that they are not originally from. Even Abraham, he left Iraq and he goes in Canaan. And then he says, all this land is supposed to be mine. You know? And then they go into Egypt because there's not enough food in the land, so he goes to Egypt. I could back up. We could go back into Canaan and talk about what he did there. How he ran this little, where he married his sister, and then he would be like, he wouldn't tell people that it was his wife. He would just say that was his sister. And then the king or whatever would take her into his house because he would want to marry her. So he would want to get in good with Abraham. So he would give Abraham a lot of gifts and everything. And then Abraham would be like, look, you're evil. Oh, you're sleeping with my wife. You're trying to sleep with my wife. You're going to have the curse of God on you. And they would give him a lot of money to make him leave. He did this in Canaan and he did this in Egypt. In a sense, he indirectly pimped his sister wife out. They go into Egypt. They're in Egypt for approximately 400 years. They come out of the slavery in Egypt. Hey,
what's wrong?
I'm trying to talk about something.
Okay, my bad.
They come out of Egypt and they immediately go to,
Sorry, my bad. I'm a push. My bad. Yeah, dude.
Thank you, Mama.